you don't get to see. Understand what I'm saying? Okay, so growth mindset is not about just effort. It's also about what? Strategic movement, and also getting help. Right, okay. By the way, you're gonna participate. All right, we understand? Okay, good. So, all these pictures kind of represent a snapshot of my life. 1996, graduated from Hawkins High School. Go Hawks, go. All right? Hawkins is actually a small town, but it's also the home of a historically black college or university called Jarvis Christian College, now Jarvis Christian University. A lot of pressure, folks. My mom was the vice president at Jarvis. All right? So anytime I stepped on that campus, I had to be on my best behavior. High school, need to be on your best behavior because what your parents do, epic disaster, sometimes, right? I then went on to Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, where I earned my Bachelor of Science degree in molecular biology. From there, I went to Wake Forest University, go Deeks. Okay, never mind. Go Deeks, where I earned my PhD in pathobiology, molecular and cellular pathobiology, studying the effects of estrogen on the beginning stages of cardiovascular disease. Everybody's heard of cardiovascular disease. What does that mean to you? Anybody? What does cardiovascular disease mean to you? Come on. It means heart disease. Okay, when is it a problem? When does that become a problem for people? When you die. Well, that's a good perspective. It is a problem, yeah. But when does it truly become a problem for people? When it starts. When does it start? No. But that's a good answer, right? Because the clinical outcomes would have you to believe that, right? But what we know about cardiovascular disease is that it is a lifelong disease process, right? And basically what happens is your body makes cholesterol, you get cholesterol from your diet. Sometimes those two things add up to be too much cholesterol. What does the body do? The body says, oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, honey, hold up. Got to figure out a way to get rid of some of this cholesterol. So the body actually packs it into cells, which then find their way under the lining of your arteries and make little fat deposits. And over time, those fat deposits build up, and they change, and then all of a sudden, one day, you have a problem. That process of fat deposition in the vasculature starts as young as 5 years old. In fact, there is evidence from a study that was done in New Orleans, Louisiana, because it was the murder capital of the United States at one period of time, where they saw significant accumulations of cholesterol deposits in the arteries of murder victims as young as 20 years old, right? So it doesn't become a clinical problem until the fourth and fifth decade of life for men, and maybe the fifth decade of life for women, right? Doesn't become a problem until then, but it's happening, right? So this idea that we have these habits where you all are eating right now, because you don't eat a lot of junk food, right? No. And you exercise at least 4 times a week, okay? So these habits that you are adopting now are habits that will actually help to sustain you and to actually keep the risk of cardiovascular disease low in your life. Now, you can't just totally eliminate it, but you can kind of keep the risk low. All right, so went on from Wake Forest, I went to Tufts University, and you see those two things there. It was a postdoctoral fellowship. The Molecular Cardiology Research Institute, that second logo down there, that's where I did a lot of postdoctoral research, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Then my first faculty position was at Dean College in Franklin, Massachusetts, tiny college, where it was my job to teach students anatomy and physiology, right? Structure and function of the human body. I then moved to LaSalle University in Newton, Massachusetts, where I was the chair of biology and health science and also the general education science core. People say, what do you do at LaSalle, Dr. Hall-Porter? I was like, I teach all the kids, all of them. Not really. Because the reason why I said that is because every member of the student body had to take a science course. And so I was responsible for making sure that those courses were in line with the core curriculum and finding faculty members who were interested in teaching engaging subjects. So it can range from astronomy to the physics of sport. But all those types of classes, cancer biology, were in the portfolio of classes that I taught or that I managed. And then finally, I'm now at the University of Texas at Austin in Tides. What a journey. So I ask you all what alignment means, okay? What I want to leave you with is my career is in STEM. I don't know what you're going to choose. Many of you are interested in STEM, right? In some way, shape, or form, right? But what I want to tell you is that instead of saying, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a computer scientist, I want to be what do you want to be? Tell me. Come on. You want to be rich. Okay. Well, that's a good goal, right? You want to be wealthy so that you can support your lifestyle, or you want to be able to support your lifestyle and the lifestyle of your family. Yeah, that's cool. I think everybody would agree that that's an admirable goal. But I want you to think about why. What is your why? Because on all these journeys that you all are talking about, okay, you aren't going to get to the what immediately. The what might be, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years down the road. But you got to think about why you're doing it, because if you don't align your why with your what, you're going to be disappointed at some point. Okay? All right. So, in essence, I want you to think about what problems do you want to solve? Because you can find yourself working in a variety of different settings. But if you train yourself or make sure that you're trained to solve a specific set of problems, then your career trajectory will take care of itself, and you might find yourself in some unexpected places. And I will tell you right now, I am in an unexpected place. So let's talk about how my career has kind of shaped up, all right? We're going to start with research, because after all, I did work very hard getting a PhD, all right? So it was about 6.5 years at Wake Forest University. I was specifically at the Baptist Medical Center campus, but I'm going to talk about research from the perspective of the end, like what I was doing in the end. So you all see this little apparatus. You've got 2 Erlenmeyer flasks up top. It says constant pressure perfusion. We'll start there. And you have a water bath here on the side, Superheat 3000. You've got a coil in the middle and something hanging at the end of that coil off of a syringe. And you see this constant flow perfusion apparatus. What do you think that thing is hanging on the bottom of that coil? What is that hanging there? Anybody? A heart. What kind of heart? Rat or mouse? Pig would be too big. So my last research assignment, literally, I took about a whole year, to learn how to do the surgery and the technique associated with isolating individual heart muscle cells or cardiomyocytes from rats and mice. Now you might think, oh, excuse me, oh, that's easy. No, it actually isn't. Because if the pH of any one of your solutions is off, if the temperature is off, if the flow rate for perfusion is not right, guess what? You spend a whole day isolating cells that are going to die in about 10 hours. It takes time. So what I want to tell you is that careers in research are not easy. You hear about the successes more often than you do the failures, and you'll get 1,000 no's for that one yes. But it's your why that fuels the what that allows you to persist through the 1,000 no's to get to the one yes. You see what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Okay, yeah. Okay. I like you, you're awesome. Okay, so that was a lot of time. So now, the research. What I was mostly interested in is the effect of the female sex steroid hormone estrogen on cardiovascular disease. Started as a graduate student learning estrogen signaling, applying it to one model of the beginning stages of cardiovascular disease, as a postdoc, estrogen signaling and cardiovascular disease complications to the end stages of cardiovascular disease, which is heart failure. And what I learned is that basically estrogen is somewhat protective to heart cells because it actually stops some of the hypertrophic growth that's associated with the pathology of heart failure. And what that means is, so think about this. Look at my hand. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. It actually looks like a heart, looks like it's kind of twisting when it beats. It's a slight twisting move right? But what ends up happening in heart failure is even though the heart is beating, and that rhythm may be kind of, slowed down or a little bit disorganized, right? But what ends up happening in heart failure is that because the heart is not pumping enough blood to the cardiovascular circuit, okay, the heart actually gets a little bit larger. That's called pathological hypertrophy, getting bigger, right? And so think about it like this. When you lift weights and your muscles get big and you get swole, right? That's physiological hypertrophy, right? Because you're literally doing that to support like function of your body, right? But pathological hypertrophy is when the heart grows associated with a disease process, right? And so estrogen kind of stops or halts a little bit of that hypertrophic growth. Okay. So that's research. Now, outreach and education, and this is where I got to have a lot of fun to support those 1,000 no's as well. So I started out working at the Museum of Science in Boston with an overnight program. And basically what ends up happening is kids and some high schoolers actually come to the Museum of Science, spend the night, do a science workshop, and then go home in the morning, right? So that's where I started. And I will tell you, you all are excited to go to college, right? Yeah? Many of you are excited to go to college? Yeah. All right. No? I can understand that, because let me tell you something. All right. Now, I do support education beyond high school, no matter what it is. However, I will tell you, college ain't no crystal stair. How many of you all like to get A's? How many of you actually have a little bit of trouble with not getting an A? Be honest, because I was like that. I was like, what you mean I won't get an A? What? Oh no, do you know who I am? I get A's. Stop it right now. Let it go. Seriously, let it go. And the reason why I say let it go is because everybody's not going to get an A when you get to college. And when you get to graduate and professional school, guess what? I made an A in my first molecular and cellular biology class in graduate school. And you know what my research advisor told me? Anybody want to guess what he told me? Nope. He said you need to reorder your priorities, because if you're making A's in the classroom in graduate school, it means you're not spending enough time in the lab actually doing the science. And doing the science is what's going to get you to graduate. He said, I got a simple formula for you. B equals PhD. In other words, ratchet down your classroom efforts to where you're making B's so that you can meet the standard to graduate and have a stellar graduate research career instead of just a classroom career, right? Now, that's effort. In college, the reason why I say that is because you're going to have a lot of material thrown at you. It's going to be trying to like drink out of a fire hydrant, right? And so drinking out of a fire hydrant is very hard. And sometimes you're going to miss some of those drops that come at you, but you can't sweat it, right? You have to do the best that you can, focusing on your growth as a starting point, okay? So this overnight education program started out teaching with a whole bunch of high school and elementary school teachers. And why was that important? Because the people that you're going to encounter in college, many of them were not trained to teach. By and large, the teachers that you're working with now in your school are better trained educators than the college professors that you will encounter. Many college professors are not trained to teach. They are trained to do research. And it is going to be apparent when you walk into many of their classrooms that their focus is research. Now, how was I different? My postdoc was actually teaching and research, so I learned how to teach along with some budding high school teachers. We all learned how to teach together, but I also did the research. That means that I spent a whole lot of time burning a whole lot of midnight oil because I was learning how to ride a bike and chew gum and juggle at the same time. I worked from can't see to can't see. Anybody get that? Can't see to can't see, early in the morning to real late at night, okay? All right, so that allowed me to do outreach opportunities with Science Club for Girls, which, by the way, I see a lot of girl power in this room. Science Club for Girls is a research, a community, of researchers and scientists who support gender inclusive science, but specifically focusing on those who identify as women and girls. fostering their confidence in science, okay, and fostering their willingness to speak out in environments that are technically challenging, because a lot of times, you know, you might not speak up, or your certain voices in a room might not be heard. And so we make sure that we support women and girls in science. Now, this picture that you see, so I'm the third face from your left, okay? I am the second face, from your left. I'm teaching a student how to work in a lab, and we're doing a project where they swabbed their skin and grew out the bacteria on Petri plates, and then we identified those bacteria through a series of biochemical assays, right? And so that was at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where students just like you come take their first semester of college courses, basically, and they run into me teaching genomics, and everybody's like, whoa, I'm drinking out of a fire hose, okay? That's the kind of experience that was. So then, let's talk about social media. Last winter, I was supposed to be having a party with my friends, cutting cake, having celebratory toast, but instead, I was watching my debut on national TV, barely had power, holding on to power, hoping that the power wouldn't go out in the middle of the show. I was featured on PBS Nova, Beyond the Elements, Life. And basically, what I did is I worked with science journalist from CBS, David Pogue, and we took a trip to the grocery store, looking at the macromolecules of life, so carbohydrates, fats, or lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And we went back to my lab at LaSalle and isolated DNA from strawberries. It was like a fun little thing. But how did they find me? You know how they found me to do that? They were looking for someone who was charismatic, who could work with a science journalist who was also trained in some television and acting methods to actually do a segment on a show. So they started Googling. What would they find if they Googled you? Think about that. Keep your social media profiles clean. And just because you think something is not public, it's all public, because if anybody wants to find it, they can find it. Anybody ever heard of Staples Corporation? The easy button? That was easy, right? When I started applying for jobs, okay, my good friend Teresa Hurd, who was the creative director at Staples, who then went on to be the global creative director at Intel, It's Inside Everything, the drone shows, Jim Parsons, all those commercials. My girl did all that. That's her work. That was her unit, right? She said, I'm going to do you a favor. She's like, I'm going to have my people in creative look at your social media profiles and things before you start the job hunt, because I would hate for anybody to find anything. And I said, oh, Teresa, it's all locked down. There's nothing there. They got into my social media profiles, and I mean all of them, faster than you would down a stack of pancakes at IHOP if you were really hungry. It took them that long, even though everything was password protected, you know, no public only, friends only, whatever. If someone wants to find something out about you, they can find it, okay? And so I want you to encourage you to keep all of that clean, keep your social media profiles professional, keep them respectful, because if people like this are looking for some talent that you have and they find you, it takes only one bad thing for them to see to decide that you are not the person for the job. Everybody understand? Okay. All right, and so they found me on a website called careergirls.org. Okay. All right, so now what am I doing? So I did research, outreach, and education, and now my career is really focused on policy and professional development. Okay, remember I told you about how students come into environments where professors aren't trained to teach, they're trained to do research? It's a big problem. And it's a big problem because can you imagine how you would feel if you walked into a classroom and someone said, look to your left, do it, look to your left, look to your right. Welcome to Biology 101. Half of y'all won't be here at the end of the semester. And started teaching. What the what? How does that make you feel? Sad? Anybody? Anybody else? You feel challenged? You're like, okay, bring it on, mister or miss. Anything else? Any other feelings from that? Worried, yeah, not a great way to start a class, right? Well, in some places, some of those messages of you will not persist, you will fail, are still perpetuated. And so what I do, because I do have this background in research, so I can talk to faculty. They respect me because I can speak their language. Education and outreach, I worked with students from so many different backgrounds and walks of life through my outreach. And now with that combination, and I'm talking about the spectrum from K to 12, I can now work on policy and professional development, not only from a faculty side, but from a student perspective, in solving problems in science education and STEM education. So that's my why. I want to solve the problems of why don't we see rooms full of all different types of students in STEM? Why don't we get to the end goal of careers in STEM, where you see a diverse range of perspectives represented in a room? Those are the problems that I decided I wanted to solve. And so, my what, I want to solve these problems. I want to solve these problems. My what has taken me from the research bench to outreach and education to now policy and professional development, where I work with this wonderful team, Dave Yeager, who's in the Department of Psychology at UT, Brandon Campitelli, Keely Finkelstein, Kristen Patterson. That's my immediate work team. We are Tides Instruct. We are all scientists who actually solve educational problems. We are scientists first, educators second, and we blended that to solve educational problems. So we work on this thing called the Texas Mindset Initiative, looking to resolve inequalities in college students' experiences and success rates, because after all, if we can do that, then that end goal of helping to diversify the career space is actually achieved, because we've helped students to persist through the education that it takes to get to the career space. And so we work with professors on interventions that support student experiences of belonging, growth, and purpose. Okay? But here's the thing. You all see all these positive messages in your learning environments about growth and trying really hard and being inspired to learn. But many times, the faculty are not really good at sending those messages themselves. They get you in the classroom, they beat you down, some persist, some don't, then you get beat down a little more. And then in the end, right, you get the people who have decided that against all odds, or have basically persisted through something that can be an unpleasant experience at times, I'll just say that. And so literally we innovate inside the classroom by taking a group of faculty, okay, so the people who are doing the teaching, behavioral scientists and pedagogy experts, that's my group, and also the behavioral scientists that we work with, to really innovate on transformative practices that actually help students to persist, okay? Now, why is there educational inequality? Well, there's informal factors like culture and climate. Anybody ever heard of the hidden curriculum? Anybody ever sat down to have a formal dinner with someone? Okay? And how do you know which glass to drink out of? How do you know? Huh? There's multiple glasses, but how do you know which one is the water glass? Which one you're supposed to drink out of? You watch the other people. Well, what if the other people don't know what they're doing? And then somebody's looking to say, they don't know which glass to drink out of. They must not be fit for this type of environment. Right? And so what we do is we actually uncover hidden curriculum in college. Like, what are the norms? Right? And we make that hidden curriculum visible. Okay? Anybody ever had an assignment where they said just turn in your paper at the end of the semester? Yeah? Okay, those assignments still exist, right? Now, contrast that with, anybody ever had an assignment that has a rubric when you get the assignment? And you know exactly what you're supposed to do? Okay? The hidden curriculum is actually exposed in a rubric. So we do those types of things and facilitate those types of experiences so that faculty understand you have to do that, right? And so what happens is, a lot of times college students kind of fall off track during the transitions between high school and college, and we help professors do things that actually will keep you from falling off track during life transitions. And by the way, it happens to the smartest of the smartest. It happens to high achievers, low achievers, everybody. Everybody can be susceptible to this. And so, keep going. All right, so instead of us focusing on what students say to each other, we change this faculty perspective. Maybe it's hard for you. You're just not a math person. We actually coach faculty to not say things like that, so that now they help students to understand that it's okay to struggle, right? That one of the productive, one of the products of struggle can actually be success if you struggle in a way where you get help, right? And then you also are strategic about what you do as you're struggling, right? So instead of hiding, you go to the counseling center and manage your anxiety. Instead of not getting tutoring help because you don't understand a learning concept, you go to the professor's office hours, right? Okay, and so keep going. One of the ways we do that, or how we start in classrooms, is we build community. And we teach professors how to do things that help students build community. Because remember, they are trained to deliver information in a subject and not necessarily how to help you be successful in that subject. And so, again, my why, wanting to solve the problem of inequality in the career space and also the collegiate space, has led me on a journey of the what, from research, education and outreach, and now to policy and practice, right? That all support solving problems in STEM education. All right? So, any questions? Yes, Jace.
So when you were talking about the hypertrophy of the heart
Mm-hmm.
and how the heart grows bigger, and then you brought up how whenever you work out, your body gets bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you work out, your body gets bigger. Does that mean your heart is getting smaller?
No. No. So it's two different types of muscle, right? And so literally when you work out, you're working on skeletal muscle, right? And what you're doing with the skeletal muscle is you're actually increasing the number of muscle fibers. You know what a skeletal muscle cell looks like? Yeah, a skeletal muscle cell. Okay, shoot, I need a whiteboard. Well, basically what you have is you have these long, muscle cells that are kind of lined up in line with each other, and they kind of connect together to make these long muscle fibers, right? And those bundles kind of like make up your skeletal muscle, all right? And so literally they communicate through various junctions between the cells. You're working on that type of muscle, right? Cardiac muscle is a totally different thing. So it doesn't mean that your heart is getting smaller. It just means that you're working on one specific type of muscle to actually increase the size and the strength at which it will, the force that it contracts with. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Sorry to go back.
Oh gosh, no worries. No, anything. You can ask me anything, like seriously.
You said estrogen
Uh-huh.
is hypertrophy of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that also lead to heart issues because it reduces the output the heart can put out to stop taking care of blockages?
No. So literally the blockages are there. They are what they are, right? And so what I will say is estrogen can become a problem. And this is a whole convoluted thing. This goes back to my doctoral research. It depends on at what stage it's acting in the body, but it doesn't make a problem. Yeah. At least in heart failure. Yes.
Does that mean if you were doing the opposite of testosterone,
No, not necessarily, because it's what I'll say. All right. Anybody got car keys? Okay, you got your car keys? Okay. I want you to do an experiment, okay? And your hypothesis is that a car key can open any car. A car key can open any car. What happens if you trade keys with your buddy here? Can you get in your car? Can your buddy, if you trade, can you go drive his car can you drive your car with that key? Right, why not? Why not? Yes, the shape of the key, yes. So cells have these things on their surfaces called receptors, and there are molecules that bind to the surface of cells. Like estrogen can either enter a cell, it can bind to the surface of a cell, but in a cell that responds to estrogen, there's a certain receptor for estrogen. Estrogen fits on it, right, and then causes some downstream effect. There are specific receptors for estrogen and testosterone. So just because you administer testosterone does not mean it will act in an opposite way. In fact, estrogen and testosterone are kind of closely related. They're all derived from cholesterol. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not necessarily opposite. Yes.
So it's about something different. So
Yeah.
the Texas Mindset Initiative,
Mhm.
are you just focused on working on like policy and working with the faculty of UT Austin or the whole UT system, or do you work with or is this something that you take to other universities?
Yeah, so actually this Texas Mindset Initiative is this part that we do right now is focused on the faculty in the College of Natural Sciences at UT Austin. But guess what? I'm giving a talk this afternoon at UT San Antonio to help some faculty get on board with this. So we're spreading it, right? And actually, I can even share some of the materials that I've generated with you. You might find some interesting tidbits there. I don't know. But yes, so we're spreading it, and it's focused right now at UT Austin, but it's a larger suite of programs. We also support on-ramps. You all heard of on-ramps? Yeah, you have it here. Yeah, we have some on-ramp stuff, and then we also are a part of a global mindset network that's doing similar work all across the country.
When you were in high school, what did you want to do?
Oh my gosh. In high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was what they call a little miss everything. You know why? I was in the band, I played the clarinet. I was on the flag line. I was a cheerleader. I played volleyball. I played basketball. I ran track. I was in UIL, ready writing, extemporaneous speaking, prose competitions, one-act play. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had a diverse skill set that could be applied to a lot of different things. So I wanted to be involved, right? Because I wanted to learn as much as I could. That was my why. So I found fulfillment in all the whats. Does that answer your question?
Any
All
other
right.
questions? One more.
One more. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
You were talking about how estrogen and testosterone interact with cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point does the amount of cholesterol in your body become harmful?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. The amount of cholesterol in your body becomes harmful when your body can't handle it anymore. Meaning that when your body can't pack enough of it. So, okay. Everybody heard of macrophages? Okay, those are the cells that gobble up the bad stuff in your body. Well, macrophages actually in the vasculature can take on cholesterol and they pack it away. That macrophage becomes a macrophage foam cell when it gets full of cholesterol. That macrophage foam cell then kind of squeezes in between the lining of the artery and sets up residence in the arterial wall. And when the body gets overrun with so much cholesterol that it can't pack it away efficiently and it starts building up and building up, it becomes a clinical problem. From a laboratory perspective, it's a problem when your cholesterol levels get over 200 milligrams per deciliter. So eat your oatmeal, folks. Good diet, lots of fiber, okay? Exercise. All right, well, I think I'm kind of over my time, but I really do appreciate interacting with you all this morning. Remember, align your what and your why so that you can find fulfillment in any career endeavor.
Mr. C. Wright is next from Tech.
Hello, I'm Philip C. Wright, and I work for a company called AKF Partners. That stands for 3 founders that retired in 2005 to go help other small startups. So I do 4 or 5 different things in any given week. One of the things that I do is I will advise an investor. Let's say you have a startup that you've spent 10 years making your startup and you're looking for your next round of funding, anywhere from $20 million to $200 million. And an investor wants to know, will that software company scale? Will it break with a whole lot of users? If you hire 50 people, will the organization get dysfunctional? Our team has about 6 or 7 hours to answer all those questions for that one company. So last week, I worked on a company that was in Germany. What they do is they create creative cybersecurity training for large companies. Okay? So this is a company of about 100 people, and they have about 10 people that are trying to create nice creative cartoons to convince employees of companies not to get conned by cyber criminals. Okay? And they also have teams that are trying to decide how can you modify that training so that it's easy, because these folks are in Germany, to translate to multiple other languages. Okay? So we spend about 2 or 3 hours just looking at the technology. Does that break or not? Then we look at their team. How well can they evaluate